So I've been dreading this day, actually. What I have to do today is start on my daughter's CRV because it needs a timing belt, water pump. It needs some maintenance items done pretty badly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that. And it is a whopping 90 degrees outside, so that's fun. It should be nice and warm for doing this particular project. So I'm gonna move the CRV onto the driveway and we'll assess the situation. Look at all the firework fallout from 4th of July. It gets lit at my house at 4th of July, man. We get crazy. So obviously I'm no stranger on a timing belt change here. What we have to do is remove the power steering pump, the belt for the AC. This mount has to come off. There's a lower mount down there that has to come off, but it does look like there's more room to work than a Civic. I've never done a timing belt change on a CRV before, so it's gonna be a little bit different there, but I think if anything it'll be a little bit easier because of the amount of space that I have to work with. But I'll report back on that anyway. All right, now that I have some shade, that'll help a little bit on the heat. Not a lot, but a little bit. And the only thing it does is cast a huge shadow on my workspace, so we'll have to deal with that. So far, so good. Here's what I got. I took this top bolt off for the power steering pump, bottom adjuster bolt here for the power steering pump, and that pretty much loosens up this belt here. It can come off. And then you probably won't be able to see due to the lighting, but yeah, so there's an adjuster bolt down there with a locking nut on top of it. And that has to be, the locking nut comes off and then it screws counterclockwise, so loosening, in order to loosen that belt up and get it off. Moving on. Okay, then after that, you're going to take off. There's a, get to the light again. There's a bolt right there on the top of the alternator. That's got to be loosened up. And then a 14 down there that you got to take off. And then that loosens this belt up. And you can get that one off. Well, as soon as you get this mount off, which is two 14 millimeters that go up there, and then the big nut on the outside, and this whole thing will slide off. For real, this has been like no problem. There's so much more room to work in the CRV engine bay, which I didn't know that the engine bay was even any bigger than a Civic. But now looking at it, it's obviously bigger, so I don't know why I would have thought that it would have been any smaller, or the same size at least. Okay, so inspecting this thing down here. Of course, this mount is shot, and I have a bunch of these, so I'll go ahead and replace that for her. And it looks like I need an oil pan gasket, because this one is shot. So I don't need to do that right now, because that's pretty easy to do at any point, but I'm gonna get that done for sure. So now we gotta take off this pulley, which can be a bitch. Everybody knows that bolt can be on there pretty tight. So I got a pretty big impact that normally takes them off fine, and I have another big impact if that one doesn't take it off, but I'm hoping not to have to resort to that. Full charge battery. I do believe. Yep, full charge battery. We'll need that. My Cobalt big guy here. And a 19. Oh, hell yeah. Nice. And when you take it off, make sure you don't lose this little pin that's in there. Or, oh, I just lost that little pin. Found it. All right, so moving right along. Now what we're gonna do is take out these 10mm bolts that hold on this timing belt cover. And once we get that off, we should have a pretty good look at what's going on down here. Okay, so after you get all those 10mm bolts off, so one there, one there, one there, one there, and there's not any up there, thank God, but this pulley can be in the way, and if it is, you have to take and loosen up that little adjuster guy there, and then you can flip this thing back all the way. I didn't do that, I just jerked it out. It came out okay, but now we have access to the timing belt, and the water pump is right here. So this is the water pump that we'll be changing, and the tensioner bolt is right here. Just loosen that up and you'll be able to pull this timing belt off, but make sure you put it at top dead center. So next we have to work on the top part of this. Take all the spark plug wires out, and I took off my little, I'm not really sure what this is, but anyway, take that off, and then all these 10mm bolts around here, you're going to remove those as well. Now that you have the valve cover off, now you have a really good look at the cam gears, and you don't have to worry about that little flap that comes over the top of them. But if you can see, there's two marks on the cam gears that have to be directly across from each other. On this one, it's a little hard to see, I noticed, but also there's some, it says up, so both of those need to be facing up. So, but it's kind of difficult to see on this engine, so I might put some red paint dots on those particular things so I can see them a little bit easier when it rolls around. And on the bottom, this one's going to be even harder to see, but there's a mark on the gear on the crankshaft, and then there's also a mark on the oil pump that it has to match up to, and those should look good too. But once you have those lined up, now you can loosen the tensioner and take off the timing belt itself. Okay, and once you get your timing belt off, you're going to notice that you can't get it past the motor mount, so you have to take this driver's side motor mount off, and you'll want to jack up the engine with something. It's probably best not to use the jack directly on the bottom of the oil pan, so use like a block of wood or something. That's what I go with. Once you get that mount unscrewed, then you can take it off all the way. And now you should have a pretty easy go at pulling this off. Especially if you have two hands and you're not carrying a camera around. Alright, so if we look at this thing, if you bend them back the other way, sometimes you can see dry rotting in them. This one doesn't look too bad. And it's a Gates belt, so it must have been changed at some point. Either way, it's nice to have that done every 100,000 miles is what they say. I think that's the maintenance cycle. But once you have it done, I actually feel a lot better. It's been a few days since we started the timing belt and water pump on the CRV that's behind me. I got all the stuff that we needed. Whenever I started it, I didn't actually have the water pump and the timing belt. I had to go ahead and order that. But we have it now, and I ordered a Gates belt because, in my opinion, they're probably the most reliable. And the kits come with a tensioner, water pump, timing belt. I also got this reusable Velcro gasket because I think these are better than the factory ones. All the accessory belts didn't seem bad to me. They didn't seem dry rotted when you fold them back. So I'm gonna go ahead and reuse those. Those are all Gates belts too. I didn't change those, but that's what was on there when I got it. So I'm gonna get this thing jacked back up because I let it down, and then we'll get going on this thing. I bought this tool off of Amazon a long time ago that goes into a couple holes on the cams and locks them so that when you put the belt on, you don't have to worry about the cams moving. You can do it without this tool, but I find it very helpful and I really recommend getting one. After that, I did drain the coolant from the radiator. Alright, so we got the water pump and the timing belt and the tensioner all off. They didn't really seem like they were in that bad of shape. This water pump is, I'm sure, the original Honda one, so I heavily doubt that's ever been changed. The tensioner doesn't make any noise or anything, so I don't think it was in that bad of shape, but this is good maintenance to do. I'm not sure who makes the water pump that comes with the Gates kit, and I'm sure I'm going to get tore up in the comments for not using an actual Honda water pump, but I don't really care about that. The Gates kits have always been good for me and they've never given me any problems, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. They look identical. The different B-Series engines have different water pumps, so you want to make sure that you use the right water pump. 19 teeth, and this one doesn't say. I'm assuming that 19T means 19 teeth. Yeah, 19 teeth, just counted them. Let's count them over here. We'll start at the G, and 19 teeth. So both of these have 19 teeth. They're the right water pump. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back up in there. Keep in mind, when you remove the water pump, it comes off from there. Looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bolts that hold it on, and you're gonna get a lot of fluid or a lot of coolant that comes out of there. I drained as much as I could from the radiator, but not all of it came out, and then a bunch of it came out from the actual water pump itself. I just watched a episode of, I think, the Speed Academy, and they are building a Type R engine. They used a factory Honda water pump, I believe, and tensioner, and when they went to the dyno, the belt wouldn't stay tight. If you haven't checked out their YouTube, I'll put it in the description below so you can follow them, but what ended up being the issue was the tensioner bolt that comes with the kit that they sell was actually too long, and it wouldn't allow the tensioner to tighten completely. So you want to make sure that the tensioner bolt, if you get a new one, is the same exact length as the factory one, or your belt won't tighten, or you run the risk of it jumping time and possibly causing some issues in your engine. But we got the water pump all up in there. Looks nice. When you put this on, make sure that you don't fold or squash the seal that's on the inside of this, because if you do, you'll have a crazy water leak and you'll have to take all this back off again to fix that. So now I'm going to go ahead and put the tensioner up there. Alright, now it's time for the belt. I actually am on the belt going to write the mileage and date that I've done this maintenance, so that whoever gets in it next time, if it's not me, will know. Alright, so timing belt is on. The two lines that face across from each other are lined up. And down here, those lines are lined up too, and I put some red on them so I can see them a little bit better. I'm actually going to put some red on these also so I can see them a little bit better. And I'm going to roll the engine around a couple times and then basically roll it until all the slack, that slack and this slack over here, is on this side of the tensioner side. And then I'm going to tighten up the tensioner and we should be good to go. After rolling this thing around, now we have the tension It's about 3 teeth different. So they start out here, and you're gonna go about 3 teeth, and now you'll notice that all the slack is on the tensioner side. Now you just tighten up the tensioner. Okay, so progress. We got the harmonic balancer back on. Don't forget your pin up in here, the one I told you not to lose. And then we will put this back on. And I don't know what the torque spec on this is, but I know it's high. So I'll put torque spec on the screen. I'm gonna look it up and tighten this thing down. All right, so we're moving right along here. We got all the belts back on. And in case you're wondering the order, it's farthest to the left, alternator, AC, power steering. Make sure you keep these belts in order, because I had to look up the part numbers for each of them because I mixed them up, but it wasn't a big deal. And now I'm going to clean this valve cover off to where there is Honda bond in all these corners. Put the valve cover back on. Everything's tensioned up nice. I think we're about ready to be good with this. After applying Honda bond in the corners of the cam caps, I put the valve cover gasket in the valve cover and bolted all that back on. The valve cover gasket and spark plug gaskets were already pretty new on the head, because the issue with the CRV when I got it was the head had a bad valve. So I threw on a B18B head, and it's been perfect ever since. It really has been a great SUV for me. I've put lots of miles on it driving back and forth to work and the occasional trip out of town. I really hope it continues being a good car for Olivia, at least through the rest of high school. After putting the weird breather box that's on the intake manifold back and bleeding the coolant for a good 30 minutes, it was good to go. I'm actually pretty impressed with how smoothly that all went, and I really prefer doing the timing belts on a CRV over the Civics. Neither are too difficult, but the extra room is super nice. I'm going to end the video right here, and I hope this will be helpful to someone. Like, comment, subscribe, because we have more videos like this, as well as some pretty sweet road trips coming up that you're really not going to want to miss. I hope you all have a good day, and keep chasing those builds, guys.